Giants. They fell from heaven. They had special knowledge. They were wise and yet terrifying. They spread across the globe in ancient times and can be found in every culture. They are different to humans. They lived thousands of years and had knowledge of the stars. They built grand stone monuments on every continent, and they are even spoken of in the Bible. Who are these giants? Where did they come from? When did they leave? Are they folk memories of great leaders? Could they be real legends of actual giants? Or are they aliens descended to Earth in ancient times? The term for God in the Bible is Elohim, which is actually plural and means bright and shining. It also strangely translates as these beings. Therefore, the term God in reality speaks of a highly skilled and intelligently advanced group of individuals we now term Shining Ones. Because of their scientific knowledge, their spiritual wisdom, and their supposed extrasensory abilities, they were once thought of as gods by lesser developed people who lived peacefully with them in the surrounding countries and domains. From this advanced culture also came the fallen ones, or fallen angels. We know them now as the Watchers, and they are recorded as having mated and reproduced outside of their own kind. Their hybrid offspring we know as the Nephilim, or egregor, and these offspring are described as giants. The tale is told that the Great Flood catastrophe that nearly wiped out the human race was due to the wrath of God, or rather, the anger of the Elohim, or Shining Ones, who had somehow initiated this event we know as the Deluge. Its purpose was to destroy this hybrid race of giants and those rebels and insurgents who perpetrated it. Although fleeting references to the Shining Ones can be found in the Old Testament, much about them can be read in the Book of Enoch, an ancient apocryphal text that was largely omitted from the Bible. A third hybrid race of giants, known as the Nephilim or Anakim, spawned from two different genetic strains, implies that the Shining Ones were alien. This then is a little taster of how deep the tales of giants across the globe can go. From fallen angels to great floods, their history is rich, complex, and fascinating. Giants have been a part of human mythology and folklore for centuries. They appear in stories and legends from around the world, and their sheer size and strength have captured the imaginations of people of all ages. From the Norse giants to the giants of Greek mythology, the legends of these colossal creatures are as varied as the cultures they come from. The mythology and folklore surrounding giants vary greatly depending on the culture. In some cultures, they are depicted as benevolent beings, while in others, they are seen as malevolent and dangerous. In many cases, They are associated with strength and power, and their immense size is often used to represent the enormity of their abilities. One of the most famous giants in mythology is Goliath from the Old Testament. According to the Bible, Goliath was a giant who stood over 9 feet tall and challenged the Israelite army to send a champion to fight him. The young shepherd boy David stepped forward and defeated Goliath with a single stone from his sling. In Norse mythology, giants were known as Jotuns. These beings were often depicted as being enemies of the gods and were seen as chaotic and unpredictable. They were often associated with natural disasters such as earthquakes and floods, and their size and strength were used to represent the overwhelming power of nature. In Celtic mythology, giants were known as Fomorians. These creatures were said to be the original inhabitants of Ireland, and they were often depicted as monstrous beings with multiple heads and arms. They were associated with the sea and were said to be responsible for storms and shipwrecks. A race of giants of the same name also lived in Scotland. In Greek mythology, giants were known as gigantes. These beings were said to be the offspring of the gods and the earth, and they were often depicted as towering figures with incredible strength. In some stories, they were said to have been defeated by the gods in a great battle known as the Gigantomachy. Giants also feature prominently in the folklore of many other cultures around the world. In Native American mythology, the Iroquois tell the story of the giant Stonecoat, who was said to have created the mountains and rivers. In Hindu mythology, the giant Rakshasa was a powerful demon who terrorized the gods and humans. Despite the differences in the way that giants are portrayed in different cultures, there are some common themes that run through many of the stories. One of these is the idea that giants are often associated with the natural world, particularly with the elements of the earth, wind, and water. They are seen as being part of the natural order of things, and their immense size and strength are used to represent the power of nature. Another common theme is the idea that giants are often seen as either protectors or destroyers. In some stories, they are portrayed as benevolent beings who protect humans from danger or help them in times of need. In others, they are seen as malevolent creatures who cause chaos and destruction. In some cultures, giants are also associated with the concept of time. In Norse mythology, the giant Ymir was said to have been the first being to exist and was responsible for creating the world. Similarly, in Greek mythology, the giant Kronos was the personification of time and was said to be the father of the gods. Giants continue to be a popular subject in modern culture, appearing in books, movies, and video games. The enduring appeal of these creatures speaks to the timeless nature of the stories that have been told about them for centuries. Whether they are seen as protectors or destroyers, benevolent or malevolent, giants continue to capture our imaginations and remind us of the power and mystery of the natural world. There is, however, a theory that the giants found in mythology and folklore around the world may actually be aliens from another world. While this theory is not widely accepted by mainstream scholars, there is evidence to suggest that there may be some truth to it. One of the primary pieces of evidence to support this theory is the sheer size and strength of the giants. In many stories, they are depicted as being far larger and stronger than any human could be. This could be explained by the fact that they are not human at all, but rather beings from another planet or dimension. Another piece of evidence to support this theory is the fact that many of the stories about giants involve them interacting with humans in ways that seem unusual or unnatural. For example, in some stories, they are said to have taught humans how to build structures or grow crops, which could be seen as a form of advanced technology. There are also stories of giants who possess knowledge or abilities that are beyond what humans are capable of. For example, in Norse mythology, the giant Mimir was said to possess great wisdom and knowledge, which he shared with Odin, the king of the gods. Some scholars also point to the fact that there are similarities between the stories of giants and stories of extraterrestrial encounters in modern times. In both cases, there are accounts of beings who are far larger and more powerful than humans, who possess advanced knowledge and technology, and who are able to communicate with humans in ways that are not entirely understood. It is worth noting, however, that not all scholars agree with this theory. Some argue that the stories of giants can be explained by natural phenomena or by the exaggeration of real historical figures. Others point out that there is no concrete evidence to suggest that aliens from another planet have ever visited Earth. Despite the lack of concrete evidence, the idea that giants from mythology may be aliens from another world is an intriguing one. It speaks to our fascination with the unknown and our desire to understand the mysteries of the universe. Whether or not this theory is true, the stories of giants and their incredible abilities continue to capture our imaginations and inspire us to explore the possibilities of what lies beyond our own world. And yet, there is in fact a lot more evidence that giants could be aliens, and for this, we have to delve into the world of ancient aliens. The possibility of extraterrestrial life has fascinated humans for centuries. While mainstream science has yet to provide conclusive evidence of intelligent life beyond Earth, some theories suggest that aliens may have visited our planet in ancient times. This idea is based on various pieces of evidence from ancient texts, artwork, and archaeological discoveries. Let us now explore some of the evidence that supports the idea that aliens came to Earth in ancient times. Many ancient texts and artworks depict beings that resemble what we could today describe as aliens. For example, The ancient Sumerians depicted beings with elongated heads and large eyes in their artwork. These beings, known as the Anunnaki, were said to have created humans and helped to shape human civilization. Similarly, in Hindu mythology, there are stories of the Vimanas, flying machines, that were said to have been used by the gods. These machines were described as being able to fly through the air and even into space. There are also numerous stories from ancient Egypt that describe beings who came down from the sky and interacted with humans. For example, in the story of Ra and the egg, Ra is said to have come down from the sky in a ship and impregnated a woman, who gave birth to a son who would become the next king. In addition to texts and artwork, there are also numerous artifacts and structures that suggest that aliens may have visited Earth in ancient times. For example, the ancient Nazca lines in Peru depict enormous shapes that can only be seen from the air. Some theories suggest that these shapes were created as landing strips for extraterrestrial spacecraft. Similarly, the Egyptian pyramids are another example of an ancient structure that has been linked to extraterrestrial visitors. The precise engineering and construction techniques used to build the pyramids have led some to suggest that they could not have been built without the help of advanced technology. Finally, there have been numerous archaeological discoveries that suggest that aliens may have visited Earth in ancient times. For example, in 1992, a team of archaeologists discovered a series of underground tunnels and chambers in the mountains of Ecuador. These tunnels were said to contain artifacts and writings that were thousands of years old, and that described encounters with extraterrestrial beings. Similarly, in 2013, a team of researchers discovered a series of ancient rock carvings in the Egyptian desert. These carvings depict what appear to be beings with elongated heads and large eyes, similar to the Anunnaki depicted in Sumerian artwork. While mainstream science has yet to provide conclusive evidence of aliens visiting Earth in ancient times, there is a significant amount of evidence that suggests that this may have happened. From ancient texts and artwork to artifacts and structures, there are numerous clues that point to the possibility of extraterrestrial visitors. While the truth may never be known for certain, the idea of aliens visiting our planet in ancient times continues to captivate our imaginations and inspire us to explore the mysteries of the universe. Many of our ancient gods were in fact also giants from myth. The biblical God is also etymologically linked to giants. So we have to ask the question, was this ancient giant god really an alien as well? It is not possible to definitively prove that God is an alien, as the concept of God is subjective and varies between different religions and belief systems. However, there are some theories and arguments that suggest the possibility that God may be an extraterrestrial being. One argument for the idea that God is an alien comes from the ancient astronaut theory. This theory suggests that many of the religious beliefs and texts from the various cultures throughout history are actually based on encounters with advanced beings from other planets. The theory suggests that these beings, who were more technologically advanced than humans, were perceived as gods due to their abilities and technology. There are also some ancient texts and artworks that suggests that God may be an alien. For example, in the Bible, God is depicted as having supernatural powers and abilities, such as the ability to create the universe and control the elements. These abilities could be explained by the idea that God is an advanced being with technology beyond human comprehension. Similarly, some ancient artworks depict God as having physical characteristics that are not possible for humans, such as multiple heads or limbs. These depictions could be seen as evidence that God is not human, but rather an extraterrestrial being. Another argument for the idea that God is an alien comes from the fact that the universe is so vast and complex. Many scientists believe that there must be other intelligent life in the universe, given the billions of galaxies and stars that exist. If there are other intelligent beings in the universe, it is possible that they could be more advanced than humans and could be seen as gods. But could there really be aliens? Throughout human history, there have been numerous reports of sightings of unidentified flying objects and encounters with extraterrestrial beings. While many people dismiss these claims as hoaxes or misinterpretations of natural phenomena, there is evidence that suggests that aliens are indeed visiting our planet. We will now explore the evidence that supports the idea that aliens are visiting our planet. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence for the existence of aliens visiting our planet is the numerous eyewitness accounts of sightings and encounters. These reports come from people from all walks of life, including pilots, military personnel, and ordinary citizens. Many of these eyewitnesses describe seeing objects that move in ways that are not possible for human-made aircraft, such as sudden changes in direction or incredible speeds. Some eyewitnesses have also reported seeing beings that are not human, with descriptions that match those of classic depictions of aliens. In addition to eyewitness accounts, there is also physical evidence that suggests aliens are visiting our planet. Some of the most compelling evidence comes from the analysis of alleged alien artifacts and implants. These objects have been found in people's bodies and have been studied by experts in various fields, including science, medicine, and anthropology. While some skeptics dismiss these objects as hoaxes or natural phenomena, there are many cases where the objects have been analyzed and found to have properties that are not consistent with known human-made materials. Another type of physical evidence comes from the analysis of crop circles. These intricate patterns that appear in fields of crops have been reported around the world, and many experts believe that they are not man-made. Some crop circles have been analyzed and found to contain traces of radiation and other materials that are not present in the surrounding area. The complexity and precision of the patterns have also led many people to believe that they are the result of intelligent design. While many governments have denied the existence of aliens visiting our planet, there have been several instances where they have acknowledged the possibility. In 2017, the U.S. government released footage of an encounter between U.S. Navy pilots and an unidentified flying object. The footage shows the object moving in ways that are not possible for known aircraft and has been described as one of the most compelling pieces of evidence for the existence of aliens. In addition to this, there have been several high-ranking government officials and military personnel who have come forward to share their own encounters with UFOs and extraterrestrial beings. Accounts are dismissed as mere anecdotes. Others are supported by corroborating evidence and multiple witnesses. While there is no definitive proof that aliens are visiting our planet, there is a growing body of evidence that suggests that this may indeed be the case. Eyewitness accounts, physical evidence, and government disclosure all point towards the possibility that we are not alone in the universe. Whether or not aliens are visiting our planet remains a topic of debate and speculation, but the evidence suggests that we should continue to explore this intriguing and fascinating topic. In conclusion, the evidence presented here suggests that the ancient tales of giants that have been passed down through mythology and folklore may in fact be stories of encounters with extraterrestrial beings. While there is no definitive proof that this is the case, there are several compelling arguments and pieces of evidence that support this idea. One argument for the idea that giants were aliens is the similarity between their descriptions and those of extraterrestrial beings in modern UFO encounters. Both giants and aliens are often described as having superhuman abilities, such as incredible strength, speed, and agility. They are also often depicted as having non-human physical characteristics, such as multiple heads or limbs. Another argument for the idea that giants were aliens comes from the fact that many ancient cultures had stories of encounters with beings from other worlds. These stories often describe beings with advanced technology and abilities beyond human comprehension, which could be interpreted as extraterrestrial beings. In addition to these arguments, there are also several pieces of physical evidence that suggest that giants were aliens. For example, there have been reports of ancient artifacts and structures that seem to be impossible to create using human technology. These structures could be evidence of ancient encounters with advanced extraterrestrial beings. While some may dismiss the idea that giants were aliens as fanciful speculation, it is important to remember that many scientific theories and discoveries started out as seemingly outlandish ideas. The fact that there is evidence to support the idea that giants were aliens should at least warrant further investigation and exploration. Mythology and folklore are a rich and diverse body of stories, beliefs, and practices that have been passed down through generations in various cultures around the world. They are often used to explain natural phenomena, provide moral guidance, and connect people to their cultural heritage. But where did these traditions come from? What is the origin of mythology and folklore? The origins of mythology and folklore are shrouded in mystery, as they are often passed down through oral tradition and may have been influenced by multiple cultures over time. However, scholars have identified several factors that may have contributed to the development of these traditions. One of the main factors is the need to explain natural phenomena. Before the development of modern science, people had to rely on stories and myths to explain natural phenomena, such as the changing seasons, the movement of the stars, and the behavior of animals. These stories often involved gods or supernatural beings who controlled the forces of nature and were used to provide a sense of order and meaning in a world that could be unpredictable and dangerous. Another factor that contributed to the development of mythology and folklore is the need for moral guidance. Many myths and folk tales teach moral lessons, such as the consequences of greed, the importance of honesty, and the value of hard work. These stories were often used to teach children how to behave in society and to reinforce cultural values. Mythology and folklore also served as a means of cultural identity and preservation. Many cultures developed their own unique myths and folk tales that reflected their history, beliefs, and customs. These stories were passed down from generation to generation and helped to create a sense of cultural continuity and identity. Religion also played a significant role in the development of mythology and folklore. Many ancient religions had complex pantheons of gods and goddesses, each with their own stories and myths. These stories were used to explain the nature of the gods, their relationships with each other, and their roles in the world. In addition to these factors, mythology and folklore were also influenced by contact between cultures. As people traveled and traded with each other, they shared their stories and beliefs, and these stories were often incorporated into local traditions. This is why many myths and folk tales have similarities across different cultures, such as the flood myths, and are found in many different parts of the world. In conclusion, the origin of mythology and folklore is a complex and multifaceted topic. While there is no one definitive answer, scholars have identified several factors that may have contributed to their development, including the need to explain natural phenomena, provide moral guidance, preserve cultural identity, and reflect religious beliefs. These stories and traditions continue to captivate and inspire people around the world and are an important part of our shared cultural heritage. And yet, hidden within these stories also lies the truth of ancient aliens' visitation and the tales of their giant offspring. Giants are a common figure in world folklore, appearing in myths and legends from cultures all over the globe. These larger-than-life captured the imagination of people for centuries and have been the subject of countless stories and legends. But where did the concept of giants come from? What is the origin of giants in world folklore? The origins of giants in folklore are difficult to trace, as they are often found in the earliest stories and legends of many cultures. However, scholars have identified several possible explanations for the emergence of the idea of giants in world folklore. One of the earliest theories is that the concept of giants may have emerged as a way of explaining the presence of large and imposing skeletal remains that were often found in ancient burial sites. These remains were often interpreted as belonging to giant creatures or beings, and stories about these giants may have emerged as a way of explaining their existence. Another theory is that the concept of giants may have emerged as a way of explaining the physical differences between different peoples. In many cultures, physical size and strength were valued, and stories about giants may have been used to explain why some people were larger and stronger than others. The concept of giants may also have emerged as a way of expressing the fears and anxieties of people about the natural world. In many cultures, natural disasters such as floods, earthquakes, and volcanic eruptions were attributed to the anger of the gods. Giants may have been seen as an extension of this concept, representing the forces of nature as larger-than-life figures that could cause destruction and chaos. In some cultures, giants were also associated with supernatural abilities or magical powers. They were often depicted as possessing immense strength, intelligence, and even the ability to control the elements. These stories may have emerged as a way of expressing the awe and wonder that people felt towards the natural world. It is also possible that the concept of giants emerged as a way of expressing social or political power dynamics. In many cultures, rulers and leaders were seen as larger-than-life figures, possessing power and authority that was beyond that of ordinary people. Stories about giants may have emerged as a way of expressing the power and authority of rulers in a symbolic and metaphorical way. In conclusion, the origin of giants in world folklore is a complex and multifaceted topic. While there is no one definitive answer, scholars have identified several possible explanations, including the need to explain the presence of large skeletal remains, the desire to explain physical differences between peoples, the expression of fears and anxieties about the natural world, the attribution of supernatural abilities and powers, the expression of social and political power dynamics, and of course, the possible folk memory of a real race of alien giants. However, it is now time to step deeper into the mystery of the giants and discover more. And it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, that they bare children to them, the same mighty men which were of old, men of renown. Genesis 6, 1-4. Is this the idea that man has denigrated and actually reduced in stature since those ancient days? In the Bible, and elsewhere. These enigmatic characters have been called giants or men of renown. The stories of giants around the world in myth and folklore are indeed the folklore memories of the Watchers of the Bible, otherwise termed giants. These giants had spread into Egypt and are to be found initially in the Egyptian term Ta-Neter, being the land where the gods were said to have come from, meant also land of the Watchers, and so they had come from the same place. In fact, Ta-Neter is the land of Shinar, or Sumer. The gods in Egypt were called Neteru, or Watchers, and this included the great father Ptah, which actually means he who fashioned things by carving and opening up. This links Ptah to the builder's side of the Watcher elite, the same as those who went north, according to Enoch, in order to measure. This is also the same as the Mesoamerican Votan, who is fabled to have built the first city. Votan is recorded in the legend of Votan as being a guardian or watcher of the race of Can. The Egyptians fabled their origins at Tepi. This was a time when these Neteru or Watchers ruled the land following the flood. So these Egyptian deities are post-flood watchers. There is no wonder now that Egypt seems to have sprung up with a ready-made pantheon of deities and civilization, even though it was to clearly evolve further over time. Another term Egyptians gave to the Watchers was Urshu, and they were said to be intermediaries between the gods, just as they were in Sumeria. The Egyptian Book of the Dead, by the time it was written, was already confused as to their origins, saying, "Who are these Watchers? They are Anubis and Horus, in the form of Horus the Sightless." It seems from even a short biblical and Middle Eastern study that various tribes or nations had indeed emerged from these early Watchers or giants. And yet what is not told is the story of the spread of these Watchers external to the Middle East. For that, we need to look at other sources. They spread their worship across the planet, from Sumeria and Mesopotamia to Europe and America, and left behind a myriad of symbolic religious languages that has baffled historians ever since. In fact, the certainty that the Book of Enoch gives us is the real surprise. Enoch is said to have been employed by the Watchers as their scribe or messenger, which is why he has been likened to Thoth, the Egyptian god of scribes, and also Hermes, the Greek messenger god. The Anakim were the race of giants in Joshua's day, and the antediluvian Nephilim in Genesis, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. The king of Bashan was called Og, and was of the remnant of the Rephaim. Amazingly, these ancient giants were known as Shining Ones. Much of the biblical writing concerning these giants speaks of antediluvian times, the time before the Great Deluge, which we read in tales from Mesopotamia and the Book of Enoch, were the result of a war in heaven, caused by a union between the Watchers or giants and the women of earth. A war in heaven? A genetic union between women and giants who shone? This is all sounding very alien indeed. Following the times of Noah, the Bible tells us that the children of Israel were sent as spies into Canaan to prepare for the invasion. These spies discovered giants in the land. Their word used for giants is the same as the word used for Nephilim in Genesis 6:4, and so we are being told that indeed the giants, who in fact caused the flood, also survived it. Nephilim simply means fallen ones, like the fallen watchers of the book of Enoch. They fell to earth and were giants in our eyes. In Deuteronomy, we also have, "The Emims dwelt therein in times past, a people great and many and tall as the Anakims, which were also accounted giants as the Anakim." The word used here for giant is rapha, which simply means giant. So, there were yet more giants existing after the flood spoken of by Moses, and in a different area to that of the Canaanites. We also find that Moab was also accounted a land of giants. Giants dwelt therein in old time, and Ammonites called them Zamzummims, a people great and many and tall as the Anakims, but the Lord destroyed them. One of the giants is even named and crops up in this story several times. His name is Og, which is where we get the name ogre from, and he was the king of Bashan. For only Og, king of Bashan, remained of the remnant of giants. Behold, his bedstead was a bedstead of iron. Is it not in Rabbath of the children of Ammon? 9 cubits was the length thereof, and 4 cubits the breadth of it, after the cubit of a man. Bashan was indeed known as the land of giants. Joshua also mentions the giants, or Rephaim. These were thought to have lived in the region near Sodom and Gomorrah in the time of Abraham. It seems that it was this way before Christian times that giants began to take on their evil and demonic aspect. The watchers were going out far and wide in order to measure, and Enoch specifically stated, to the north. This would have a significant bearing upon European stories of giants who were said to have built the ancient monuments such as Stonehenge. Indeed, Bashan, the home of King Og, was said to be of huge stature, a giant city. The ancient giant known as Og was supposed to have lived for 3,000 years and walked beside the ark during the flood, thus dating him to pre-antediluvian times. Phonetically similar to Og is the Sumerian Ogma, or Ugmash, and who has been linked with the Ser Nabas, the giant land picture in England. Ogma is also part of the Shining Ones of Irish myth and legend, the Tuatha De Danann, known as Ogma Grian Einek, or he with the countenance of the sun, the Shining One. In Greece, he was also Apollo, the sun god. According to Greek mythology, the giants were the sons of the earth, which would link with the Hebrew sons of God. The Greek giants, the sons of Uranus and Gaia, the mother goddess, fell to earth from the blood of Uranus in much the same manner as the angels of the Hebrews, who also were against the gods. In Irish mythology, the giants were actual gods who had fallen from heaven, like stars falling to earth. And in Nordic legend, they fought against the gods. Most giants are said to live below the ground, which is symbolically a cave or underworld, the dwelling of the shaman, and are said to possess the powers of the earth goddess. The modern image of the slow and stupid giant is at odds with ancient symbolism. It is very likely that this may have been an attempt by the Christian Church to dispel the worship or reverence in the old ways. The Cader Idris, or Seat of the Giants, in Gymed, Wales, is where Idris, the Welsh prince and astronomer, is said to have sat in the distant past. This shows the belief that these ancient people of stature were once our leaders and had a deeper understanding of the stars than we do, and came from the gods. The kind of knowledge aliens would obviously have. Most giants were bearded. The reason for this becomes clear when we discover the significance of the beard. It is primarily the ancient symbol of manhood and power, which eventually became the symbol for wisdom, authority, and even divinity. A race of beings with superior knowledge to mankind. Again, very alien-like. What does indeed seem peculiar is in fact the story of giants as a worldwide idea of an ancient bloodline that goes back thousands of years to the fallen angels or watchers. In Native America, there are also tales of giants, and in one specific tale, we even find the legend of the descent of the Paiute Indians with cannibalistic offerings and baby killing. In Europe, there are literally hundreds of tales of giants, and mostly similar, showing a common origin. In Ireland, for instance, and elsewhere, we have the giants purportedly building giant causeways out to sea and to underwater or cavern realms. According to Geoffrey of Monmouth, the English giants were the only inhabitants of England when Brutus arrived from Troy. Geoffrey also wrote how the last giant was eliminated by Corineus of Cornwall, who enjoyed wrestling with the giants, and when Brutus was attacked by a pack of them at Totnes, he defeated them all, except for a monster called Gog-Magog. This one remaining giant, Brutus offered to Corineus as a wrestling partner. Gog-Magog, of course, is biblical and encompasses that term Og, seen as the giant king of Bashan, and as the root for the ancient Ogma language and Ogmius or Ogdode, ancient giant deities of Celtic times. Gog-Magog has many parallels in other mythologies and literature, most of which come from retelling of the stories in which we find giants. In Scotland, the giants had a reputation similar to the Native American one, where they ate human flesh. Across Europe, there are monuments such as standing stones burial mounds, barrows and cairns, and even natural formations like rocks and crags in the shapes of chairs, desks, and tables that were considered to be the relics of a race of giants who were thought to have lived in certain localities. Of course, this relates back to the Watchers of Enoch, who went north to measure and build. Across Scotland, there were various groups of giants, one of them the Fomorians, who lived in the Highlands, and has a name similar to the Fomorians of Ireland. Indeed, it is believed by some that they are the same and escaped Ireland for Scotland, bringing their tales of giants with them. The Fomorians of Ireland were a race of giants who occupied the island in ancient times. The dates are unspecific, as we are talking about myth. They were not the first people there, however, and had to do battle with the inhabitants, the Partholons, to claim the land. Following the Fomorians came the Nebids, who were easily beaten and enslaved by the Fomorians. Next came the Firbolg, who were more successful and actually subdued the Fomorians, going on to eventually live peacefully with them. In Ireland, they were the mythical Tuatha De Danann, or People of Danu, which means People of the Shining Ones. The male god of the Tuatha De Danann was none other than Ogma the Giant, whom we mentioned earlier. His name derives from the same root as the biblical Gog Magog. The stone-building expertise of the biblical figures was now global, and the same rituals were being carried out. The Tuatha De Danann were people coming from the Middle East, via Denmark, the Danube, and elsewhere, leaving their... We also see that these holy ways included astrology and dream interpretation. This method of divination is highly related to the waking-sleeping state called the hypnagogic, and is part and parcel of the method of enlightenment and shining. They, however, chose to pick a fight with the Firbolg, dealing out land and privileges to the Fomorians. They even intermarried. The name Fomorians comes from FOMO, giant or pirate. This is the same story as related by Enoch about the Watchers who mated with the lower classes. What reason could there be for this later wave of Shining Ones, under the title Tuatha De Danann, to be more lenient on the Fomorians than the Firbolg? It may be because they already knew each other as giant watchers and gods of ancient Sumerian myth. It is possible that the Firbolg were also fallen watchers. The giants, then, are fallen from the heavens. They have superior knowledge. They shine and are different to ordinary human beings. Somehow, they joined with humans and created a special bloodline. They moved across the globe, and tales of their time on Earth are found in almost every nation, with remarkable similarities. Even the names are often the same. If these ancient giants, fallen from heaven, are not truly aliens, then what were they?